we ready? Good evening. Welcome to the January 8th, 2014 meeting of Richmond Community Schools Board of School Trustees, our work session. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Now we are ready for our statement of mission.
Richmond Community Schools will graduate students who are literate, responsible, proficient in state and national standards, and college and career ready.
Thank you, Aaron and Dixie. Our vision.
By 2020, Richmond Community Schools will be the highest performing school system in East Central Indiana.
Thank you. And now we have oath of office administered by Mr. Ron Cross.
Thank you, President Morrison. It's my pleasure to administer the oath of office to re-elected board member Aaron Stevens and newly elected board member Susan Hively. I'd ask each of you if you would please stand and repeat after me. I affirm that I will support the Constitution
That I will support the Constitution
of the United States of America,
of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the laws of the United States
and the
and the laws of the United States,
and the State of Indiana.
and the State of Indiana.
I will faithfully execute the duties
I will faithfully execute the duties
of my office
of
My
my
office
as a member of this governing body.
as a member of this governing body.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. I've got hard copies that you'll need to sign. We have to file with the clerk, but I'll leave those with you.
Welcome, Susie, and congratulations, Aaron, on another 4 years. You're starting your
Fifth term.
Your fifth term.
16th year?
17th year.
17th year.
Okay.
I'm
And welcome,
deciding what I
Susie.
want to be when I grow up.
Okay, we are ready to move on to business of the Board of School Trustees.
And the first item of business is the election of officers.
Okay, we are ready to take nominations for office of president. Do I have a motion?
I so move that Linda Morgeson remain president.
And second?
Second.
Seconded by Aaron Stevens. And could I have a motion to close the nominations? So moved. And a second to that, please? Dixie Robinson. And now, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Thank you. for that
Congratulations.
vote of confidence. Thank you. That's
At
pretty
least you-
good that he's saying congratulations.
Well, and at least you're smiling about it.
Now we're ready to move on to Vice President. I need a nomination, please. Aaron?
I nominate member Jeff Slifer for the office of Vice President and move that the nomination be closed on that one name.
Okay, oh, you made it really easy. I have a nomination. I need a second to that nomination. Second. Seconded by Dixie Robinson. And now, could I have that motion again, Mr. Stevens, to close?
I move that the nomination be closed on that one name.
And a second to that? Second. Seconded by Suzanne. All those in favor for Jeff Slifer to become Vice President signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Congratulations, Jeff. And I would just like to insert that Suzanne has been our president and has served us very well. So thank you, Suzanne, for serving as vice president.
You're welcome.
Now we are ready for secretary. I need a motion for secretary. Kelly?
I'll make a motion that Aaron Stevens be nominated for secretary.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Jeff Slifer. Any other nominations? Then I need a motion for the nominations to be closed. Kelly makes the motion for nominations to be closed,
Second.
and Jeff seconds it. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Congratulations, Aaron.
Thank you.
The next item of business is for the board to determine its meeting dates, and I recommend that the board approve the list of meeting dates as posted to the web.
Do I have a motion to accept the meeting dates? Aaron?
So moved.
And seconded by Jeff Slifer. Comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
The next section has to do with appointments, and the first item is to appoint a school treasurer. I recommend that Mr. Bob Coddington, Director of Business Affairs, be appointed the school treasurer for the Richmond Community Schools for the period of January 1st, 2014 through December 31st, 2014.
I so moved.
Okay, motion made by Jeff Slifer, seconded by Kelly Baumgartner. Comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Our second appointment recommendation is for deputy treasurer, and I would recommend that Mrs. Karen Scalf be appointed the deputy treasurer for RCS for the period of January 1st through December 31st this year.
Okay, a motion made by Kelly Baumgartner.
Seconded.
Seconded by Aaron Stevens. Comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
On the next appointment, we're recommending several. This would be for representatives authorized to open and tabulate bids. We recommend that for this list, the following individuals be included and approved. Mr. Bob Coddington, Director of Business Affairs. Mrs. Barb Bergdahl, Director of Exceptional Education. Ms. Maggie LaRue, Food Services. Ms. Janet Elstro, Executive Assistant for Business Affairs. Ms. Karen Scalf, Coordinator of Accounting and Payroll. Mr. John Hamilton, Area Manager. Mr. Glenn Slifer, Area Manager. And Mr. Rob Tidrow, Coordinator of Technology.
Okay, pretty long list there. Do I have a motion to accept those names? Motion made by Dixie Robinson, seconded by Suzanne Darengowski. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Next appointment, I'm recommending that the board approve Mr. Ron Cross of Boston Beaver, Clingy Cross, and Chichester as the appointment as the school attorney for RCS for a period of January 1st through December 31st of this year.
Motion made by Aaron Stevens, seconded by
I'll second.
Jeff Slifer. Comments or questions?
This also includes approval of the contract that you have attached with this?
Correct.
Okay. And he added his last line that he, no, I'm just kidding.
What?
For the last line you would have on all of our bids.
Ron has been our attorney for a few years. And more than Aaron has been on the
Yes.
board, I believe.
Definitely.
37 years.
Okay, and has
7 years.
served us well. So thank you for that service, Ron. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
On the next appointment, I'm simply recommending that you make these appointments. You're going to have to make the decision as to who goes into these positions. You could use a representative to the policy liaison, the legislative liaison, and an ISB delegate. This is all for the Indiana State School Boards Association.
Okay, policy liaison first. Is that, looking over our policies and serving on,
They will do that. This person also may be asked by the ISBA from time to time to assist in policy development.
okay, who would like to offer their services for being on our policy committee? I have done that before. It's a really exciting.
I've
done it too.
I've done that before, too.
Madam President, would you consider it?
Well, I would if no one
I'll do it.
else would like to
I'll do it. I'll do
have
it.
that
All right.
opportunity.
I'll do it.
Are you sure, Jeff?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so let's,
Got my vote.
okay, so Jeff Slifer, do I need to take a motion, each one separate, or?
You could do it a whole slate if you'd like to approve
Okay.
it like that.
All right, so the next one was
Legislative
for
liaison.
the legislative liaison. And Kelly?
I would do that if nobody else is interested in it.
Okay. Is anybody else interested? Okay, so Kelly Baumgardner will be our legislative person. And the last one is ISBA representative, delegate
For the delegate assembly.
for the and Aaron Stevens has volunteered to do that. So I need a motion to, for the three people mentioned, Jeff, Kelly, and Aaron. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Aaron makes the motion, seconded by Suzanne Darengowski. Comments or questions? Thank you, all of you. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Motion carried.
For the next action, which is an annual action by the board, we are recommending approval of all existing policies and guidelines as posted on our school website.
Okay, do I have a motion? Kelly makes the motion. Dixie seconds the motion. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, we're ready for the joy of learning now. We've gotten all that out of the way.
For the public that follows these meetings, it should be noted, a couple things should be noted. This is the annual reorganization meeting. Boards across the state are doing this this month, early this month, and this is why we move through the appointments as we do. Another change, if you follow these meetings, we have had snapshots for success for a few years. In keeping with the overall intent of the board, which is to focus on joy of teaching and learning, we are now calling this section the Joy of Learning, and I'd like to call Bridget Hazelbaker to the podium to talk about National Mentoring Month.
Hello, everyone. To start off, the theme for this year's 14th annual National Mentoring Month is Be Someone Who Matters to Someone Who Matters. For 26 years, Richmond Community Schools has been in the forefront of supporting safe and effective school-based mentoring. We continue to be the leader among area school districts in the effort to encourage all community members to consider mentoring as a practical way to support positive youth development. National studies have shown that mentoring works. Quality mentoring programs have been shown to impact students socially, economically, academically, thus creating safer, healthier, and more productive citizens of Richmond. From local data, studies have shown that RCS students who met regularly with their mentors improved academically by 76%, improved their attendance by 71%, 80% of our students had less office referrals, and 100% of our mentored seniors graduated from Richmond High School last year. I'm proud to announce that CIS Wayne County received a grant for matching high-risk youth in four of Wayne County's high schools. Kim Parsons from Communities and Schools, Wayne County, and I will be participating in many wonderful workshops at the National Mentoring Summit in Washington, D.C. this month. I'm excited to learn more about mentoring training opportunities and how to match more of our at-risk high at-risk youth at Richmond High School. We currently have 163 students connected to a mentor. During the 2012-13 school year, RCS students received more than 1,500 hours of mentoring from our caring volunteers. Richmond Community Schools also has 82 new mentors since July 2010. I'm sorry, my voice. We still have a need for more mentors. We currently have 28 students on a waiting list. Based on our partnership with CIS, the site coordinators decide from a student's individualized student plan whether mentoring is a support system for that student. Throughout the year, I will continue to recruit community members to find a volunteer for those students. Those who may be interested in mentoring are always welcome to visit us on our website at wearerichmond.com, the RCS Mentoring Facebook page, or by calling me at 973-3329, or they can contact anybody here and they'll get them connected to me. I also would like to invite you to join us for the RCS Mentor Appreciation Breakfast on Friday, January 24th. Have a little flyer in front of you. It's from 9 to 10 at Test Intermediate School. We'll have a hot breakfast and entertainment provided by the Test Choir. I'd like to thank Dr. Borf, the school board members, and cabinet for allowing me to share with you the wonderful progress of the RCS mentoring program. Are there any questions? Okay.
Well, thank you, and
I love it.
thank you to our mentors.
Yes.
They are making a difference, obviously, with our students.
Yes. Thank you.
Did we want the secretary to read the proclamation?
Yeah, Bridget, you had
The new secretary?
a resolution that you wanted them to adopt, did you not?
It's online.
It's on there? Someone, the secretary's
got it?
supposed to have it? Okay. Mr. Stevens, go ahead, please.
The resolution. Whereas January has been designated National Mentoring Month, and whereas mentoring is about people helping youth to succeed, mentors are caring adults who offer support and encouragement to young people, and whereas students matched with mentors benefit greatly. They gain self-confidence, have better attitudes, improve relationships with peers and families, are less likely to become involved in destructive behavior, and are more likely to stay in school and graduate. And whereas mentoring benefits the mentor as much, if not more, than the student. Mentors gain a fresh perspective on their lives, strengthen their own values, and learn more about themselves. And whereas Richmond Community Schools is fortunate to have many dedicated mentors working with our students, mentors who make significant contributions to the youth of our community. And whereas many Richmond Community School students are waiting for the assignment of mentors. In an effort to recruit more volunteers, mentors are encouraged to be someone who matter to someone who matters when they meet with their students during National Mentoring Month. And further, be it resolved, the Board of School Trustees of the Richmond Community Schools thanks those dedicated volunteers who serve as mentors for our students. The board urges more adults to volunteer and make a positive difference in the life of a young person. Adopted this 8th day of January, 2014.
Do I have a motion to accept the resolution? Motion made by Susie Hively, seconded by Dixie Robinson. Comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bridget. Before we move on from the topic of mentoring, I'd like to mention that if anybody would like to dip their toe into the water of what mentorship is all about, we have Challenge Day coming up. And Challenge Day is an opportunity for anybody in this community who is interested in working with students on a given day to explore what it means to face the challenges that we all face and come to grips with the fact that we're all in this together. This is a great opportunity. Challenge Day is like no other day, and adults are asked to volunteer just one day. It is a full day at the high school, and they'll be paired with up to 4 or 5 students, and we go through the day. You have your students, and you explore challenges together through a very prescribed set of activities. So my experience has been that you learn as much about yourself as you do about the students. And if you're not convinced by the end of the day that mentorship is a good thing and a real possibility for you, I'd be shocked. So Challenge Day is January 13th and through 16th, but we only need people for one single day. Leslie Bolser is in charge of that, and if you would like to volunteer and make that known to us, we'll take calls here at the central office. You may also call the high school. They're more than willing to accept your interested involvement. Looking forward to it.
This day is done by outside, very energetic
That's right.
facilitators who connect very well to youth.
That's right.
And it's a fast-paced, fast-moving day, wouldn't you say?
Very fast pace, and you don't have to plan for it. There's no preparation that you need to involve yourself with in order to go. I mean, it will be enjoyable. It will be challenging in some ways, but it's going to be a good day, great day.
Okay, we are ready to move on to report discussion topics.
We have talked for some time about what will be happening to some of our buildings that we have determined that we should be closing, and we closed Highland Heights Elementary Building some time ago. It has been the topic of discussion, and we've had sales out there. In order to take the next step, we have sought advice from our counsel, and I would like for him tonight to talk to you about the options you have with that building. It may be a bit different from some of the options that we have looked at in the past for other buildings. It's a new time, it's a different time. So, Mr. Cross, would you like to talk to them a little bit about their options?
Well, essentially, this discussion, at least my involvement in it, began with an inquiry that was made by Reed Hospital for possible use of the structure to house daycare, or if you will, or child care center for employees of Reed and for other patrons. At this point, you have three options, as I see them. You can rent or the property at its fair market value, you can sell the property at its fair market value, or you can go through a process that would allow you to lease the property to enable Reed's participation and use of it at less than fair market value, and that's a little bit of a convoluted process that I've given Mr. Coddington a detailed memo on it. But in any event, the overall general rule is that before you can do this, you have to have the property appraised. If you're going to sell it, you have it appraised for its fair market value. If you're going to lease it, first of all, you must adopt a resolution that says you find it to be in the best interest of the school corporation and your constituents to engage in a lease process, and obviously the reason for that would be you don't want to relinquish ownership of it for whatever potential future use you might have. So that would be the first step, and then the next step is that we appoint two licensed appraisers to independently appraise the fair market value or the fair market rental value of the property, report back, and then the process requires that legal notice be published. Typically what we've done, we've not engaged a professional auctioneer, although the statute would allow you to do that, but it does require that you set create a time period, a beginning date by which you will start receiving bids, and a shut-off date by which time all bids shall have been received. And during that period of time, you're free to accept any bid from a bidder that as long as they're not statutorily disqualified, and that's a different issue, but typically you can accept any bid that is at least 90% of the average of the two appraisals. Now, that's a qualified acceptance because in my letter to Mr. Coddington, I call this a somewhat not-so-silent auction, because you basically have an obligation, if you're inclined to accept a bid that's within the 90% parameter, you have an obligation to notify other folks who bid and give them an opportunity to increase their bid. And you keep doing that until you ultimately determine the highest and best bidder. If you do not get a bid that is at least 90% of the appraised value, then You can sell it for less than the appraised, that 90% figure, but you have to give notice to any other bidders of your intent that you'll be doing that. And as I say sell, the same issues apply for the lease, although you can be a little more creative in defining the terms of the lease as maintenance obligations, who pays utilities, who this, that, and the other. That would all be spelled out in your invitation for bids. And that's the typical way it works. It's a little cumbersome. We've done it in the past. We did that with the old Fine Center building that ultimately was acquired by the Molina family, and it's not a procedure that we're unfamiliar with. Now, with Reed, to the extent that they would be desiring to have access to the facility at something less than the fair rental value, if you will, that creates a bit of a different problem, because the statute under which we're acting limits our ability to directly lease to Reed. There's no enabling statute. This is different than our situation with XL and the YMCA, because there was a very pointed statute that was very specific to school corporations that would allow school corporations to lease their properties to not-for-profit corporations organized for educational or recreational purposes. Certainly, XL Center would be a not-for-profit organized for educational purposes, as was the Young Men's Christian Association of Richmond, a not-for-profit organized for, among others, recreational purposes. So we had that little statutory exception that was carved out that allowed the process by which XL and the YMCA have become tenants of the C.R. Richardson site. To do what we would entertain doing with Highland Heights would require that we go through a two-step process. Conceptually, we would lease the property to a governmental entity. We have the right to do that at less than fair market value, at whatever consideration the board and the governing body of the other governmental entity would agree. And again, that would be spelled out in a detailed lease. It could be $1 a year, but there would be certain, allocations of responsibility for maintenance, insurance, what have you. That governmental entity, in turn, provided it as a city, county, town, or township, then could sublease the site to Reed directly, and the concept would be that it would be based upon essentially the same terms as would be contained in the direct lease from RCS to that governmental entity. So in effect, that governmental entity becomes a pass-through. Again, I say this is a little bit convoluted, but it's something that happens with great regularity in the context of economic development. It is the rule rather than the exception that as part of an incentive package to a prospect who's proposing to develop an economic facility, that the owner of the property, be it the county if it's out in the Gateway Industrial Park, or perhaps the city of Richmond if it's in the city, will convey the property to the Economic Development Corporation of Wayne County, a not-for-profit corporation, and they can do that at less than fair market value. The EDC, in turn, can then lease or convey the property to the developer at less than fair market value as part of the overall financial incentive package that has been the inducement to get the developer to bring its project to our area. So this happens with some degree of regularity in a slightly different context, but it is certainly nothing surreptitious about it. It's transparent at all levels. The documents are public documents that we would entertain, at least our lease and our sublease with Reed Hospital. So those are the options as I see them available to you. And I can't speak because I've not been directly involved. I've just responded to Bob Coddington's inquiries, so I don't know what the level of interest is with Reed at this point in time. But I think I've given you an overall view of what your options are, testing the markets, if you will, to try to sell or lease at fair market or fair rental value, try to accommodate Reed if this interest still exists, and we can identify a governmental entity willing to serve as a conduit.
Could you say what are the advantages of leasing it to a city, county, and then subleasing. What's the advantage of doing that?
Well, the advantage would be that you would be enabling the use that Reed wants to make of the property at presumably an incentivized leasehold rate for the benefit of the ultimate users of the property, the people that are in need of daycare, childcare, what have you. I mean, that's the advantage. Obviously, with that, it would be a negotiating process as to how much responsibility for maintenance, ongoing building maintenance, systems maintenance, insurance can be passed through to the tenant, and how much would remain with us. I can speak pretty confidently that Mr. Coddington's desire is to have the minimal amount of cost remaining with RCS and the maximum amount passed through to the ultimate user, which would be Reed. That would be the advantage would be more of a policy decision on the part of the board. This project it merits the board's support for that type of structure of a financing, if you will.
And then for you, Dr. Borff, is our intent right now, are we looking at selling or leasing? Do you, or we just?
My thought is that we would be, I would not advise you to sell that building. I don't know that growth won't occur out in that north end. There's certainly some potential for it, and that property is well situated. And the other aspect to this, I've met with some officials with Reed as well, and there are some nice partnerships that could be developed through this arrangement. One of them would be educational, because we have some opportunity for some vocational partnerships there with early child care. The other piece is there's the prospect for child care opportunities for our own staff. Now, that wouldn't be early on, but it certainly could be developed, and we're having discussions about that.
There are other questions from Kelly?
Well, you asked my question, but I just wanted to kind of clarify. So you think that we don't want to sell it because we may have a future use for it down the road?
I would not be surprised if there would be some growth that direction. And if there is, Crestdale doesn't have the capacity to absorb that expansion, that type of expansion. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know exactly what's going to happen out there, but there is potential for some development.
But I mean, honestly, that's our only building that, I mean,
Garrison.
well, but as far as the amount of work and so forth.
Well, that was my next question. How is there as
They all
much
need
work in that
renovation.
building?
Well, because it has a relatively new roof.
It has a new roof.
Brand new roof. Yeah.
Now, it's
Still needs some work.
there would still be some work, and Reed some work is in that building as
Right.
well, and that's what they're sizing up right now. Is how much they. This is not any kind of a recommendation just yet. We still would need to work with them to make sure that they are interested. We've been going through months of conversation, but we've not negotiated anything.
Okay.
Jeff?
Ron, on the way, I mean, I understand our three options, and but do the same rules apply if we don't? We're looking at it as 100%. They take 100% control of the building. Are we held in with the same rules if, for example, we have one room ourselves that we keep for educational purposes?
I mean, that could be negotiated. It depends on their needs and our
Well,
wants. and our needs.
but if we did that, do we still have the limitation of the fair market value for them to take over 95% of the building?
Conceptually, we would do the same thing, only we would just have the lease directed to the 95% figure if they're still looking for and I think they are, somewhat of a concessionary rental. But, you know, there wouldn't be anything different. To answer your question, yes, we can do partials. It's not all or none.
But if we, just so I make sure that if we had one room ourselves that we wanted to use, whether we used it or not, we just set the lease up for them to have 95%. Sure. Since we're not turning over the total control of the building, we would still be required to go through the less than fair market value process?
Wouldn't be required. That's an option. The less than fair market value approach is totally voluntary with this board. I mean, it's a bit, like I
Well,
say, it's
required maybe is the wrong word,
Yeah.
but I mean,
but that approach can be used if you wanted to reserve half the building, and make half available.
well, I was just thinking, letting, if Reed is interested and we do something where they take 95% of the building, then we don't have to worry about bringing in the government entity. Bringing in the government entity for that incentive.
No, we still
Would be required.
unless they're willing to pay 95% of the fair rental value of the property, or whatever the corresponding percent is, we're still going to have to go through that bifurcated
So
process.
it's not restricted, it doesn't matter what percentage of the building, it's any percentage of the building. Okay.
Good idea, though.
That's what you're saying.
Do we have the actual condition of the Highland building? I know it has a new roof, but the boiler, the windows...
We would have a description of that in our capital projects document.
Okay.
And there's not a recommendation being made here tonight. We wanted to show you the options, discuss with you the options, but there will be a recommendation very soon, particularly if Reed is continuing to express interest.
I would think, though, when they go to do the appraisal, that the condition of the boiler and all that would be factored in pretty heavily, and we'd have to take that into consideration when we're negotiating with Reed for a lease.
I think there's electric heat out there. I'm not sure about boilers, but that's beside the point. You're right. And they're examining the building, too.
Okay.
Are you permitted to say, are they interested in any other buildings other than Highland? And
None of ours
Okay.
that I'm aware of.
All right.
Location-wise, I would think
I have one
that
more.
would be great.
And is Highland on, I know that Garrison was on well, Highland is it on well?
No.
No. The only one on well wire is
Was-
Garrison.
Yeah, okay,
That's why we have to pay for the testing and all this stuff.
Right.
Even now, we pay for the testing every month.
okay.
Could you explain the difference to me between the potential use for Highland and the fair market value restriction versus what we're doing with the family fitness at the Hibbert Pool? I mean,
I'm not sure what,
I-
that one is a,
That's a user fee that I think
Right.
they're paying our standard, or a fee under the Bob,
yeah, it would be like the church that uses our gymnasium on the weekends. It's a building use rental.
so it's not a rent. It's not. I thought it was a building rent.
No, since you and I talked about that the other time, I should have told you I looked into that, and it goes from time to time to time. It's not a long-term lease like
it's a little
we're talking
different from
about.
just a facilities usage that you might have if you wanted to rent a gymnasium for something. Because I do believe that the arrangement we have passes through a lot of the maintenance for the pool through
That one does.
to the family fitness.
Anything else?
I still don't see the difference, but
Since we're talking about buildings, do we know if the Y is up and running?
It is up and running.
is.
It is up and running. I think Suzanne has even conducted a class.
I
over there.
have, and it's going to be great. I mean, there are probably a couple weeks left maybe to get some things cleaned up, it looks like, but they're very excited about it and had a good first few days, I think. So.
Good. Great. Okay.
The other item was, and Mr. Coddington is not with us. He was in Florida, has come back. He is in the state right now, but I don't know that he's going to be able to make it to Richmond because of the weather conditions, or road conditions.
Go Noles.
But last week, there was a meeting with RP&L. We had some other people who were there. Mr. Schleifer was there. Mr. Tidrow was there. I'm not sure who else might have been in that meeting, but Mr. Coddington was going to lead a descriptive conversation about that meeting. He can't be here. If Mr. Tidrow or Mr. Schleifer would like to talk about it, that's fine, but I had not asked them to do so. This could be delayed to the next board meeting, but it's up to you.
Makes no difference to me.
I will say I was not surprised, but Mr. Slifer knew a great deal of what was going on there between RPNL and IMPA, which is the state organization. It was, and to say the least, we were impressed by Mr. Slifer's knowledge.
Well, it goes back. It goes back to it goes back to the issue of what seemed to be an exorbitant electricity bill.
Correct.
For the school corporation. And so as Mr. Coddington was researching that, he discovered something called the energy cost adjustment, which was levied against the school corporation, having nothing to do with the rates, or I should say with consumption, and it didn't seem to be anyway. So there's been more conversation. That's a lead-in.
Well, basically, most of our school buildings, all of them except for, I think, 2, were on what is general power rate. And years ago, we were on a large power user rate. But when they went back and submitted the rate structures to the state years ago, people in the Richmond for the last 10 years have been moving from large power user rates to GP rates because it's a cheaper rate. And so now what's happened is that cheaper rate is moving up. Well, the RPNL hasn't made a rate adjustment since 2005.
2005, 6.
Well, part of the reason why they don't make rate adjustments to the state, one is it takes 11 or 12 months to go through the process. The second reason is they can adjust cost with this ECA. So there's really been no reason to go back. And basically what this cost does is it allows IMPA, the agency that they buy their power from on the grid, they project what their costs are, their hard costs for the facilities and manpower and all that kind of stuff. And they publish a rate or a factor every 3 months. And then at the end of the 3 months, they add that to your bill, and that's your monthly adjustment for each month after that. Well, they've realized that they're way out of whack, and as users shift between different classes, cost goes up, but the fixed cost stays the same. So the result of the meeting basically is we're switching the rates, and we're switching our rate classes in all of our buildings, except there's a few that we're not going to. But so we'll have to start paying attention to demand and demand factors, because that's another adjustment. But it's essentially all the energy savings that everybody's been doing across the state. Well, we're doing a good job of shedding our power, energy consumption. Utilities are receiving less money. Their costs are going up and their revenue's going down, so they have to have some way to adjust it. So this is how, when you ask the questions,
Conserve, but we're going to raise your rate anyway.
yeah, when you hear about all the rebates out there that they're doing statewide, when you hear about all the incentive programs that they're out there doing statewide, well, now, if they keep cutting their revenue and their cost keeps going up, where are they going to get it? They're going to adjust their factors. So
We're saving ourselves.
Does that ECA apply to residential users also, or is it?
Well, there's different, there's like 15 different rate classes, but there's 4 primary ones. So it won't hit the residential market, it won't hit the GP. But that's part of, there's a whole different story there. But right now, RPNL does not charge with their rate structures any penalty for how efficiently you use your power. So if you're not using your power very efficiently, you have no incentive to spend any money to correct it. Well, for those that are using their power efficiently, and for those that are spending the money to do the energy savings, you're actually being penalized on the back end. So they realize that that's going to be a big problem. And honestly, when we had, I got to commend RPNL. I mean, they came into a meeting under fire. Gus Duke and Ralph Bain were there as well, and And you can understand Mr. Connaughton when he finds out he has a $50,000 cost that he didn't plan for. I mean, he's doing his job. They did an analysis. They did. I think you can agree. They're trying everything they can do to help us minimize our cost. And by changing our rate structures, I think we're going to reduce our cost by $15,000 a month over what the proposal is going to be. There's some things about shedding load. They're going to do some things to help us.
Why, I noticed on the chart that was provided, municipal, there's a municipal rate, and why would we not be on that?
Well, the municipal, that's not a rate that we can get to. I mean, we can get large power user, we can get residential, we can get, they got new terms out like peak coin and that kind of stuff. My first question to them was, why aren't you communicating with all government entities? I mean, but essentially, RPNL had no clue what this adjustment was going to be because it's a pass-through cost from EMPA. So, we've got this nice generation plant down there that until I think the last couple of days, I don't think we've generated our own power down there for over, 3 years?
No, we did in the summer. I mean, it's...
But it's, they've got a cost where it calculates that it costs them $62, $65 a kilowatt or megawatt hour to generate power. Well, they typically buy it off the grid, for $40, $50. That's why we're not generating power, because they could buy it cheaper than what we can generate it. Well, the same thing with EMPA. EMPA doesn't run their generators very much either. They hit high demand on Monday of this week. They ran their generators a total of 8 hours over here. But the cost of power went, up to $70, $75 a minute. So what they're doing is they're passing that cost back through. RPNL doesn't know how it's coming until they get it. So
are we still
Seems
going to be
unacceptable that there was no
utilizing the energy group that?
There will be a proposal. Yeah, there will be a proposal on using a consultant to help us reduce energy costs. We located another service provider, and we want them to provide a proposal so that you have something to look
We've
at.
been through so much of that already, though. That's what and I guess my problem with this whole thing, I understand justifying. I just don't understand how you justify surprise.
Well,
That's what I don't understand.
There's some things that we could do to lower our impact. One is we should technically have a rate analysis study done every year. So now we ask for that to take place every July.
Right.
So we would be able to know for our budgeting. I mean, we really haven't done a strong analysis on it since we changed our rate class. So I think
So did anybody else get this same surprise?
everybody that was in this rate group.
So who else is in the same rate group? You don't know?
I don't know, because as a user, you can determine what group you want to be charged in. You got multiple options.
Based on your
Residential
analysis.
don't,
That's what you're saying.
but there's commercial users, there's large power users, there's different.
So was the ECA only assessed to the organizations in our rate
In the
class?
GP rate class. Now, there is another ECA in the one that we're switching to. It doesn't matter the term, but it has now a demand factor ECA. The only difference is that increase in cost wasn't anything near what the GP. So what you're going to see as people start to shift, you're going to see that cost start to shift. That's why we should do the analysis every 12 months.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, we're going to have about a $200,000 increase over next year.
Susie?
I know that in Indianapolis, know this because of electric cars. I know that if you're charging something big like a car during off-peak hours, you get a lower rate. And I'm wondering if there's any allowance made for when you're using the electricity, whether you're using it during peak times or non-peak times, because most of our use would be, I wouldn't expect it would be during, well, it would depend on what type of use we're having, but some of it would be non-peak, I would think.
Well, and the rate that we switched to allows, they'll send us notification when they need to shed power, and we're on that class. There is an option for,
Okay.
there's some times that, if you could shed power between 7 and 9 in the evening and 7 and 9 in the morning, those types of things, that we're on that reward for that.
We've already
Now,
started
we weren't
receiving
before.
those messages this week,
We weren't before.
shedding, shed at, 7 p.m. and whatever. This week is not a good week to do that, of course, because you still have to heat your environments even when no one's in there, but.
But what was nice is the only time they hit peak so far this week was, 7 o'clock
7 o'clock.
Monday evening,
Right.
which is good for us because our demand is down.
At that point.
So,
Well, thanks, Jeff, for attending that meeting and showing Mr. Tidrow that you have some knowledge.
well, kudos to, Ralph Bain and Gus Duke.
Were they the only members of RPNL who were here, or did they bring a staff with them?
No, those are the only two that I met with.
They were the only two, okay.
Yeah, but, they're probably 2 out of the top 3 that's there, so, they did everything in their world that I thought they did a nice job.
I think so.
So, you could tell that they knew that they were getting slapped in the face this way and slapped in the face that way, but they were still smiling, trying to help us, so.
Well, thank you very much. Well, this is different. We're on public commentary. I don't know I've ever seen it just right there, but it's
You never know what you're going to see.
it's on our agenda, and we're going to let the public speak if anyone from the public wishes to speak. Anyone? If not, we will go into our work session.
And the work session is entitled Telling the Story, but there is a story to be told that explains why we're at this point. And would you like to talk about your experience with the forum at the high school?
I would, and any other board members that attended, feel free to chime in, because before Christmas, we attended, some of the board members were fortunate enough to attend a forum that was held at the high school under the direction of Mr. Corey Irwin, who is in our audience today. And I'm not sure how many students were there, Corey?
63.
63. 63 students came together to look at what they felt some of the concerns were or problems were at the high school. In the first part of the forum, we talked about what the problems were. In the second part, we talked about solutions. And the students were very passionate about their conversations and about Richmond High School in general. I was really impressed with their passion for their school. Well, one of the problems that they identified was the image that many people in our community have of Richmond High School. And they also went even further to talk about the image that some of the students have of Richmond High School that isn't necessarily a positive image. And so they talked about how they could go about changing that image. And so while we were discussing our work session for this week, we were reminded of our students and really led by our students, because so often we feel like we're in that same situation. How do we get our story out, and how do we let the community know the great things that are happening in Richmond Community Schools? And so that's kind of how our work session evolved today through our high school students, basically. Anyone else that attended that forum want to comment? Kelly?
One thing that did strike me was that these students, it was a good cross-section of students, were very proud of the school, and they really want to change the perception. And what as I was thinking about it, I think a lot of the perception out in the community comes from people that don't have kids in the school system. So I think, that's something we need to deal with, maybe with the students and the community together, trying to pull them together.
And I think that this was the first forum, and I think that there is plans to have, to continue the conversation. Is that correct, Corey?
Yes, ma'am. We have a tentative date for February.
Oh, so anyway, they are moving on their conversations also. So anyway, that leads us to what we're going to do tonight.
That's right. We're going to have 3 groups, and they'll be facilitated by Jeff Slifer, Linda Morgeson, and myself. What we're wanting to avoid as we go through here is rehashing marketing. We've talked about marketing, we've talked about public relations, and we have a committee that's designated to do that. It's done some nice work. And we're not here tonight to talk about what they should be doing or what they aren't doing or what they are doing. We're talking about how do you connect with our stakeholders, with our students, maybe how do we change our own habits. One of the things I like to talk about when we have our No Excuses luncheon, where we're recognizing employees who are doing a nice job of addressing the mission of the district, is to say that when we're born as children, if you notice, even babies will go to the speck on the blanket, the fly, or the speck of lint that's on that blanket. We're wired to note differences. We're wired to note something that's unusual. And how does that have anything to do with what we're talking about? Well, at the end of a day, our students, our teachers, tend to remember that was different, and sometimes it's not a positive that they remember. Their day was fairly positive. We know that because 98.5% of our students are minding their P's and Q's throughout the day. We have the facts to support that. But they remember the problem they had with a classmate. They remember a disagreement with a staff member or something that wasn't working right in the building. And it could be that everything except that one event went well, but it's that one event, it's that one thing they talk about when they go out at night that then becomes larger than life because somebody hears about it and then they repeat it and so on. So how do we, as a group, use all the tools that we have, our marketing tools, our communication tools? How do we connect with our stakeholders so that they're hearing the story and not the abnormal piece of information? That's what we're challenged with tonight. We're going to dedicate 15 minutes to talking about how we might address that question. And what we'll do is spend those 15 minutes, and I'll be ringing a bell at the end of 15 minutes, and we'll come back and we'll report out. Or maybe we won't come back. We'll report out at our groups. And then as board president, you may decide whether you want to reconvene the groups to do some remediation or whatever applies. So at this point, anything else you want me to say?
Nope, I think that covers it.
We'll count off by threes, as we've done in the past, and we'll use everybody who's out there in the audience as well, because they'll just be a part of one of our groups. Kathy, you want to start right there?
1, 2, 3.
1,
2, 3.
Now, since I facilitate, I don't count, right?
No, I guess you don't.
Boy, I tell you what. We had all the good ideas here, and he's trying to squelch it.
Okay, group number 1, would you like to report out, please?
I do believe that we came up with a lot. I believe we came up with more questions than answers or solutions, because this is going to be something that we're going to have to continue to work on. The image perception coming from the students, that's one of the things that is paramount that we resolve one way or another. It's great when you find out that students feel great about themselves, they feel great about their school, they feel great about our school community, but how do we spread that? How do we nurture their thoughts and take that out of the building after it's been nurtured in the building and put it out into the community? That's one of the big things. So some of the things we talk about are student-generated storytelling and marketing, okay? And I'll use your next session coming up, your next forum, Mr. Irwin, and that would be to identify some stakeholders out in the community, some very key stakeholders, whether they be mom-pop business owners or the president of a bank or the chamber or someone, say, you know, go directly to them and say, we want you to come at our next student-led forum in February and be a part. You've got to hear the student perception. You've got to hear the student success stories, because they're the ones who are the ambassadors, and they are also going to be the ones to share the great effects that our educational opportunities here in Richmond, what they're having on the community. This will, you know, it needs to start in the classroom. It's got to begin there with the discussions in the classroom, but it's also got to be in a structured manner so that it's not helter-skelter or just, you know, out here or there. It's going, you know, a teacher-led or an adult-led focus, so to keep the guidelines and also structured too. We've got to utilize better the venues that we have, not just the Palladium or the radio stations, but in our buildings, the newsletters and the newspapers, and continue to do that. And if it means the personal letters from students going out, hey, listen, I'm student X, and I'm sending you this business, I'm sending you, business owner, or you, mom and dad, this letter coming from my classroom supporting or to tell you what has been happening positively in our class, the success rates going on, so that you will know. You know, that might dispel some of the rumors of what may go out into the community. Student-led engagement with community and business, I've touched on that. Teachers as ambassadors, you know, our teachers, you know, have got to become more of the ambassadors in their homes, in their churches, wherever they may go out there. When you hear, and we all have got to step up into this role too, when you hear something negatively, just don't sit back and say, hey, listen, this happened in the school, and just let it go by. We've got to rigidly stand up immediately and say, well, that's not true exactly, and this is what's happening, because the public seems to dwell more on negatives than the positives anyway, and that's another story. Student testimonials, teacher testimonials, someone in environmental services. Everyone is important. Everyone has a message of positive meaning to give out there. Everyone has to share the good news. You know, some of the questions, again, how do we organize and structure? What groups do we prioritize to target? And some of our last comments were invite intentionally the stakeholders to our meetings, to whether it be to our special events such as a choir concert, debates, anything else going on. Let them come out and see how magnificent our students are with what is going on. And again, spread the good news.
Any questions for Group 1? Thank you. Group 2.
Yeah, we know you did. Is this on? I probably didn't need it. Hello? Is it on?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we had a really good conversation. First and foremost, we feel like we need an organized plan, because a lot of the ideas that we have, we're already doing a lot of them, but it's kind of haphazard. And so we felt like that was first and foremost, was an organized plan to get out into the population and bring the population in. We know that the Palladium item, that role is changing a lot, and the Palladium was always our, it was always there for us to have them come to us and to write stories about us and so forth, but we know that's changing. And so we feel like that we need to utilize WCTV a lot more than what we are. And we don't know how much time they would give us, but we think that if we submit the videos and so forth, that they would put them on for us. And so from what I understand, there are lots of videos on YouTube that are already prepared and ready. It's just a matter of organizing so that we work with WCTV. And of course, Jim Russell, who has previously worked at WCTV, is the head of our, what's it called? The radio TV. And so that might be someone that we want to tap into and something that we want to tap into. We want, the suggestion was made that we use students a whole lot more than what we're using our students to get the good word out. They can tell our story very well. And whether it's going to organizations around town or having organizations come to us, we need to utilize our students. Another suggestion was utilizing the time here at our board meetings, especially during our celebrations and during our joy of learning. We can't always bring the students here, but we could certainly have a video or something that we could share that the students have done, both the obvious and the not so obvious, because we have a lot of programs and so forth that we have within this school system that isn't always shared. And we could also show videos before our board meeting and after the board meeting. We don't know how many people actually watch WCTV, but it seems as though when I'm out and about, I'm always having someone tell me that they have seen me on TV. So, and I think it's because the hours that the programming is showing is at different hours, and it meets people, they're flipping through the TV at 2 o'clock in the morning. I can't imagine me coming up at 2 o'clock in the morning when they're flipping through. But anyway, another thing that we talked about was our employees and our employees feeling confident in our school system and wanting to share the good word about Richmond Community Schools. And so we talked about how to go about perhaps doing that. And of course, Corey, being an educator here, he said that our teachers have so much expertise that could be shared. And we need to work to make sure that their expertise is known in our community and that we value their expertise, whether it's through some kind of an educational forum that we hold or whether it's letting them share their expertise in some manner so that the public is aware of that expertise. Social media, it was shared that we could easily tag, help me with this, we could easily tag the things that...
Content more searchable, easily searched. So you search Richmond Community Schools, our videos actually, I don't search Richmond Community Schools very often. But make sure that what we have out there is easily to search and easy to get to. It's not a 5-step process to watch a recent video. Or 6.
So that was also an idea. Of course, the organizations that we have, the many organizations that we're partners with and that we have in the community, let our kids share with them some things that are pertinent to the kids, but that the organizations would also be interested in. When we talked about also the register, maybe the register needs to be more community friendly. And one of the ideas that the kids had when we were at the forum was to make sure that the register is distributed throughout our community in offices and so forth. Anything else that I left out, guys? Okay.
Group three did a nice job. How do I know that? Because there are ideas that haven't been discussed yet that Group 3 came up with. One of the items that Group 3 talked about was when we communicate to our staff, there are times when we should be communicating to the whole community. And Dixie talked about the messages that I've been sending to employees concerning why we're deciding to call school or go with an early or a late arrival. That could have gone out to the broader community. Maybe that was something that we should have posted on the website. Not a bad idea. And some of the update items I thought about at the end of a week where I update the board might be general public pieces of information. I don't know. That's given me some reason to think about how I communicate. Ron Mays talked about communication of all kinds of topics at board ball games. Ball games where we have lots of people could be great spots to talk about programs that have nothing to do with athletics. It might be the orchestra program, and we have done that. We have highlighted orchestra, we've highlighted student council, we've highlighted different groups, but maybe we need to be highlighting elementary schools as well. Maybe we should be attaching, this came up too, maybe we should be attaching to the More Than Words initiative, maybe we should be attaching for a whole month one specific program that we do. Attach that to the More Than Words so that the word is getting out to the whole community. For example, integrity, if that's your word of the month, we could be focusing the student council. Let's talk about everything that the student council does. You're attaching it to the word integrity. What a neat attachment the community might place to student government, integrity. That's just an example. Weekly programs on cable, now that we did here. We talked about a weekly program, but using the cable TV. FaceTime, though, was something that came up. FaceTime is something that could be used by any elementary student. One of our challenges was how do we give students a learning experience and also gain from it the positive information going out into the community. And Susie's idea was students can use technology to communicate some of the great things on a daily basis. They can use the FaceTime. They can use some of the broadcast capabilities within a smartphone to get the good word out. We don't have to wait for Cablevision. We could put that on YouTube right then and there, and it's amazing how many hits we get on some of these YouTube entries. positive wrap-up at the end of the day. At the end of every day, if every classroom had a positive wrap-up, focusing on something good about the day, how many kids would have intentionally discussed with their parents that night or with other brothers and sisters something of a positive nature instead of that one thing that went wrong? That's something that we thought would be simple to do. Well, maybe not simple to do, but it's a simple technique. Establish talking points, building level elevator speeches. This is something that students could be challenged to do, and it could be dedicated to the standards. There's not a single topic we've talked about that couldn't be addressed to the learning standards, especially if it came to building speeches or giving speeches or designing news items. Shift celebrations at the board meeting from the end to the beginning. We already know that there are more people who listen at the beginning of a board meeting than at the end, so why not celebrate at the beginning instead of hold that to the very end? We also talked about these pathways, the three basic pathways that we discuss that coincide with the elementary, the intermediate, and the high school. Maybe we should have or kind of define what kind of attitudes and values we would like to have as outcomes for experiencing those pathways. We talk about knowledge, skills, but maybe we need to talk about attitudes and values and then be intentional about getting kids there. Speakers Bureau, and I said that this is kind of an interesting thing. Misty and Bridget are pulling together a Speakers Bureau even as we speak. And the twist on the Speakers Bureau, because Richmond Community Schools has had a Speakers Bureau before, but the twist that we've talked about is attaching students to the speakers who go out. For example, if Bridget goes out and talks about the mentors as part of our Speakers Bureau, she may take a couple students with her whose parents have allowed them to go out and talk about the advantages and the positives that they've gained from having a mentor. Kids need reasons to do a lot of things, and we could give them so many more reasons for their academic pursuits if we just attached reasons like the Kiwanis Club, presenting at a Kiwanis Club, or presenting at a doctor's group. Highlight the relationships. You know, it's the relationships that we don't really think about sometimes that we need to be talking about. We tend to talk about events. If we could only talk about relationships and highlight the relationships between students and teachers, this is something that we might want to think about even at the board level. We didn't talk about, I don't want to get off the board meetings for a minute, we talked about the importance of handling the hard questions at board meetings in such a way that we're not communicating that this is the story. It may be a challenge and it may be a problem to deal with, but we also have to make sure that we balance it with the good news and where that problem is happening in the overall scheme of things. Parents, we have a Parents as Leaders program. We have PTOs. We have the Parent Leadership Group that meets here once a month. Challenge them to be advocates for the system. And from time to time, I think they serve that very purpose, but it's not necessarily an organized manner. Whiteboards for compliments. That was something that Susie said was in the elementaries at one point, and it was simply a whiteboard up in the building, and students and teachers are encouraged to simply write a compliment on there that day. And it's amazing, she said, how many times, once that becomes a habit, how many times that's the focus in the building. That can be done in a number of ways today with technology. It wouldn't have to be necessarily a whiteboard in the hall. It could be a place in technology that comes up later in other places. So those are some of the ideas that we had. I also want to focus or want to highlight the fact that we have so many positives that we've created through the marketing committee. And I don't want to diminish any of the good work that they've done. We need to better use some of that. And to that end, Bridget has worked on an audit throughout the corporation, and she'll be sharing some of the results of that audit. I hope to share that then with the principals so that we can see where we may not be taking advantage of some of the marketing tools that we've created. And those marketing tools can be as simple as using the Block R that we have, the We Are Richmond, or it could be using technology to get out the newsletters that we've talked about. And Bridget has a number of features she's looked at in the buildings that she'll be sharing with me. So we'll share that back with the principals. And we'll have this same conversation with the principals. I think it'll be interesting to have this kind of conversation with them as well. So, Linda, back to you.
Well, you know, another thing, I'm sitting here thinking, we think of our competitors as the choice schools, but we are a choice school, and we probably need to play that up and let everyone know that we're a good choice in schools. So I think we always look at our, at other schools around the area as the schools that are the choice schools. So anyway, so what's next?
I think what's next is, first off, we'll be documenting, we'll pull this together, and we'll bring this back at the next board meeting, somewhat through categories, but we'll also have some reaction from staff on some of them. And there are going to be some easy first things.
Fine job, Drew. You're released.
No, you're right on the videos. I was looking at the video from Warren Townsend. Oh, yeah. The whole thing. There wasn't an adult inside. Okay. Our next item is action items.
Our first action item tonight is a continuation of our reorganization meeting. This is the evening for us to recommend conflict of interest statements that we would ask the board to approve. These are disclosure statements forwarded to the State Board of Accounts and the Clerk of the Circuit Court of Wayne County. I recommend that the board approve the uniform conflicts of interest disclosure statements as presented from myself, from Kathy Parker, Misty Hollis, Suzanne Darengowski, Susie Hively, Glenn Slifer, Linda Morgeson, Rob Tidrow, Teresa Reynolds, did I always say Jeff? No, it was Glenn. Jeff Slifer, Mark Millis, and Ron Cross.
Okay, do I have a motion? Aaron Stevens makes the motion, seconded by Kelly Baumgardner. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
The next action item that we have is approval, or first reading, I should say, of Policy Section 6000. Policy Section 6000 has to do with finances in the corporation. And the finance department, business department, has revised these policies. They have incorporated new policies that Neola has recommended. And in the policy section that has been provided to the board, what you have is the draft after the first go-around from the Finance Department. It then was reviewed by the Board Policy Review Committee, which consisted of Kelly Baumgardner and Pat Heine, myself, and members of the Finance Department again. This is why some of the policies are a little rough-looking. They've been scratched up. We've made notes. We've talked about additions. I have not sent those out to Neola to be revised like I would normally do. We thought we would cut that process out and instead bring you the changes as noted. This would be the first reading, and following the adoption, we would be sending those off to Neola for final draft. Not a final draft, it would be a final publication. So this is a first reading, and what we're recommending is that the board approve this as a first reading.
Okay, motion made by Kelly Baumgardner, seconded by Susie Hively. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
The next item is a resolution transferring the Bundy tiles, actually they're the Overbeck tiles dedicated to Bundy, to the Richmond Art Museum. This is an extension of the conversation we had at the last meeting. Actually, we've had this conversation a few times, but at the last meeting, Sean Dingworth was here talking about the tiles. And this is a resolution that incorporates one of the requests from the board that if the Richmond Art Museum dissolves or merges with another entity or ceases to exist in some fashion, then we would see that those Bundy tiles or the Overbeck tiles would revert back to the school corporation.
Okay, do I have a motion? Motion made by Dixie Robinson, seconded by Aaron Stevens. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Our appreciation goes to Mr. Cross for drafting that resolution, by the way. The next action item is an administrative authorization to take care of the Richmond Middle School Building Corporation. The Richmond Middle School Building Corporation will have to be, there's a fee for continuing that. There are some reasons not to continue it, as I expressed in some of the supportive material for this board meeting. We have a new building corporation, the multi-school corporation, that we can use for the same purpose, and there doesn't seem to be a reason to continue this. We would like authorization to dissolve this in an administrative course of action.
Okay, motion made by Jeff Slifer, seconded by Suzanne Darengowski. Comments or questions?
For clarification, you're basically authorizing us to do nothing.
Yes.
Because if we don't file the annual reports, even though the cost is relatively nominal, eventually the Secretary of State will administratively dissolve the corporation. Since the test bonds have been retired, there's no need to keep it alive any further, and we would have and do have the holding corp that we created for the recent small capital projects that would still be available if we needed an entity to do subsequent lease financing.
Okay, thank you. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
We also have, as an action item, the approval of the recommendations of our Common Wage Committee. I'm not necessarily sure that we need to adopt these, but approval is what I'm requesting.
Okay, I have a motion. Jeff Slifer, seconded by Aaron Stevens. Come on, stay with me, guys. Comments or questions? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Okay, we are ready for our press conference. Anyone from the press have questions? Seeing none, we will move on to consent items.
Our consent items tonight include the approval of the December 11th board meeting minutes and the executive session minutes. A recommendation from Human Resources. There is not an addendum for the Human Resources. Approval of accounts payable. Approval to accept drawings and set a bid date. And also corporation-sponsored field trip. Those items I encourage the board to approve.
Do I have a motion to approve? Oh, now I have lots. Kelly Baumgartner,
You got the message.
seconded by
I'm with you.
Susie Hively. Comments or questions? I noticed that we have our
Our
relatively
orchestra director.
new orchestra director with us. So would you like to come forward and say anything about the trip that you are planning?
I'll give you a little rundown.
Come on up. Welcome.
Thank you.
Would you state your name, please, so that we have that on record?
Yes, I'm Ann Garrick. This is my first year as orchestra teacher for Richmond Community Schools. This trip is through World Heritage performances, and yeah, it is to Chicago, and there's a lot that's included in the trip for really a pretty reasonable price, I think, that I'm hoping to get everything covered through fundraisers and corporate sponsorship, et cetera, fundraisers and all those fun things. And this is going to be the first weekend of May, and it'll include some touring of the city and getting different experiences that are all included in our package, including getting a feel for Navy Pier, walking around the area, and they're actually hosting a dinner and awards banquet at Medieval Times, which I'm not sure if anybody from this area is familiar with, but I'm from sort of near Chicago, so it's something I'm pretty familiar with. And I know there's other locations throughout the country. I don't know anybody familiar with this Medieval Times. So that'll be fun. That'll be the way that we're pretty much ending our day on Saturday after we've performed for judges, and it's kind of a rare opportunity to get professional opinions and feedback for the students, that they're going to be able to give us a professional recording and feedback on our playing, and just in general, I think it's a good way for us to end our year and sort of prepare us for the next year with that under our belt.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Sounds like a very interesting educational time for the kids. And we wish you good luck on your fundraising and hope that all of the students get to participate.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you for
you.
coming. Now we need to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. And we're ready for our second public commentary. Anyone from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we will move on to follow-up old business.
One of the follow-ups we wanted to talk about was we invited 3 of our potential legislators last month to speak to us about concerns that we have regarding upcoming legislation. And so to that end, I think it was on the 17th, had Mr. Williamson here, Mr. Rotz, and Mr. Whistle, the 3 potential candidates for the position of state senator, taking the place of Alan Paul. It was a good conversation. It went much longer than we anticipated because of the engagement of everybody in that conversation. But we discussed some of our concerns with regards to preschool, the emphasis of preschool. We discussed our concerns with vouchers, with some of the accountability pieces. We also discussed concerns with the expansion of charters at a time when public education, expansion of charters and vouchers, at a time when public education was being reduced in some of the support. It was a good time for them to hear what was on our minds. They gave the impression, anyway, of listening. They did respond to some of the questions, but we told them we weren't interested in answers. We knew they didn't have answers, but they did seem to be listening, and they did respond with questions of their own. So I wanted to express appreciation to the three gentlemen for
Well, it
giving
was
us
an
the time.
opportunity for us to also do some educating
That's right.
about some of our situations. And I want to thank Aaron and Suzanne for joining us in this conversation. Do either one of you have any comments that you want to make?
I think the opportunity for educating was good. I had a little frustration, I think, over what they didn't know. But I did have a chance to have a follow-up conversation with a couple and invited them on a personal tour. So we'll see if we are able to do that. I think that would be a really great opportunity for them to witness some of the stuff that we just talked about firsthand, because I do think that it has been a very long time, if ever, that many of them have been in a Richmond school. So.
And the three of them have very diverse backgrounds when it comes to experiences with public education, and that was very apparent with the conversations that we were having with them. It's one of my key concerns were if any of the three of them were elected to that position, if they are going to continue to engage us in conversation, if they are going to, if we as the public entity are the experts when it comes to education or the needs of our school corporation, if they are going to gauge our thoughts and glean from us understanding before going and casting a vote and making a decision. Again, some of the answers were given in a very diplomatic way, but at the end, I'm certainly hoping and praying that if any of the three of them do get that seat, that we as a public education entity will not be pushed to the side and that they'll listen to us.
Yes, I really appreciate them taking their time to
Yes.
Absolutely.
coming and talking with us.
It was fun engagement.
It was. I understand that we are on a 2-hour delay for tomorrow. Is that correct?
We are on a 2-hour delay. A lot of that has to do with simply getting the daylight hours out there.
probably wise.
We know that we'll probably have, the likelihood is very good of having some snafus. This gives our transportation staff time to do some troubleshooting before the routes begin. If there are any buses that are having a difficult time starting, this at least gets some daylight hours on that. If we do have to do some route adjustments, this all happens in the daylight. So the other piece is that it also provides the fact that we've already made that determination. It provides families with some time to get ready for that. We appreciate so much what's been done these past couple days by staff here in the buildings and on the parking lots, making sure these buildings stay open. The buildings have been open during this time. People have been working in them. I would also like to thank the maintenance staff for dealing with some of the problems that we have associated with freezing temperatures. We have had some pipes that have leaked and popped and burst in different places. We've had some at Dennis, some at Garrison, some at Hibbard, and I'm glad to tell you that in every case we've done the cleanup and no student learning activity will be impacted. At Hibbard, we may be moving a class from one classroom to another while we finish up some of that tomorrow. But the problems that I anticipated in the scope simply didn't happen. We have dealt with some significant issues, weather-related, this week. And to say that we had 3, knock on wood, the night's not through yet, but 3 issues, and they're all being cleaned up, and we're ready to go, is a testimony to the people that work our buildings. So thank you to them.
Could you talk a little bit, especially for the public, about how the waiver that our state superintendent has grant, or is going to grant, for missing the days of school?
Yes. The Department of Education for almost 20 years now has taken the position that we do not grant waivers to schools that have decided to cancel classes due to inclement weather. Glenda Ritz, State Superintendent, informed us this week that she is granting waivers for those classroom requirements or class requirements for Monday and Tuesday. That means that we will not be making up those days. It's pretty much a statewide issue. It's not a school-to-school issue. And the Department of Education, in an unprecedented move during my tenure as superintendent, has given us a waiver opportunity on those 2 days. Now, today does have to be made up, and for that we have President's Day that has been set aside as a potential snow day, so we will be making up today by using President's Day. We've already, on December 6th, taken a day out of school, and that had to be made up. That's on Martin Luther King Day, the 20th of this month. Today, we've not received a waiver from the State Department, so it will be made up on February 16th, I believe it is, President's Day. But yesterday and Monday are waiver days, and we have submitted our application. We anticipate approval for that. That means the students will not be required to make up those days. We will be working at compacting, compressing some instruction to make sure they're ready for their exams when the time comes.
Okay, very good. Now we are ready for superintendent and board reports, reflections, celebrations. Anybody have any of those things that they would like to share? Aaron?
A couple. Even though we were off on break, there were a lot of things that were happening in the corporation, and a few to recognize. I wanted to recognize Coach Casey Polance and the girls basketball team, who spent time during the holiday season going out into the community helping, various needy families and other things. This is something that they didn't have to do, but they took that upon themselves. Also, last weekend there was the Bob Wettig basketball tournament at Tiernan Center with 16 teams from around the area, from around the state, from outside of the state who came in. And if you've never been to a basketball game or a tournament in Tiernan Center and you miss this, you'll still have the opportunity with the Sim Estates coming up. But from coaches, from other teams, from parents of players, from the referees, from administrators from other school corporations who were here, they say that not only was the Tiernan Center impeccable in its appearance, but the atmosphere, and you start off with, not at the top, but the people who are doing the nuts and bolts, the environmental services people who made sure that that place was just immaculate, and it was immaculate. And everything from the administrators and the teachers who volunteered, who were there helping, it was a well-run thing, and some of the referees were just totally said, this is definitely becoming one of the very key holiday tournaments around the state, and they hope that they always get the opportunity to come back. The coaches were saying, again, the kudos go out. This is again one of those things that we may not shout out loud enough about. But when you've got 15 other schools, from around Indiana, Kentucky, who came in here, who said that this is a place where they want to be, enough can't be said about it.
That's right.
Bring some business into town.
Yes.
Multiple days. It was a lot of fun. There's a little JV tournament too this time.
That's
we
true.
got to use our brand new Dennis gym, and it was beautiful.
with bleachers, Dixie.
Yes.
It was perfect.
Okay, anybody have anything else?
Yeah, I think we probably need to reiterate the whole mentor. We have so many people who volunteer to be that, to play that role with our kids. I just think we need to reiterate that and celebrate them and remind them to come to breakfast on Friday, January 24th. And then also, if you've been thinking about it, to reiterate the Challenge Day opportunity, because those are exceptional, once-in-a-lifetime kinds of deals, and you'll get more than you give out of those
Absolutely.
opportunities. So I would really encourage people to consider that.
Dixie?
I had one other thing, too. I think we should say a word to our bus drivers who are going to be driving tomorrow, because there's still going to be some treacherous spots, and I know if I were a bus driver, I would probably be driving with fear in my heart that I wouldn't encounter one of those places. So I think we should all be wishing them good luck tomorrow.
You mentioned the facility folks. There's some facility folks out at that bus garage, too. The guys that keep buses running and stop arms unfrozen, they worked all weekend and all of the off days to make sure to keep all of those things running and working so that we would have the buses we need. So there's just so many people that were working very hard all through this really bad weather.
And thanks to all of you, because it takes lots of people to make this operation run smoothly. Well, with that being said, I don't have a bell because someone did
Over there. Bring it on your way through.
Thank you. Saved him. You saved by the bell. We are adjourned. Couldn't miss that opportunity.
These guys are